Hey, hope you're doing well. Andy here from Drive Steady, and today I'm reviewing this, the Audi S8, the most powerful version of this full-size luxury sedan. So in this review of the S8, I'll be giving you all of its details, along with sharing my thoughts on the interior, exterior, and of course, the driving dynamics. So let's get started with this review of the Audi S8. Alright, so let's start the review off by giving a big thank you to Keys Mercedes for giving me access to this Audi S8 today. If you happen to be interested in this car or any other new or pre-owned Mercedes product, make sure you give them a call. I've left all their information in the description below. Now, let's quickly touch upon the looks of this S8, and it's got the signature Audi headlights and taillights, and they look really cool in this S8, especially those rear taillights. And then compared to the A8, you have a revised front bumper, which is somewhat understated, but yet aggressive, which is what I like in a big luxury sedan. And out the back, it's mostly the same understated theme, and the only real hint that you're driving a sportier model are the quad tailpipes. Overall, what do I think of the S8? I think it looks good. It has a lot of presence on the road and still goes under the radar as this sportier S8 model. But if I had to choose between the competition and the S8, I do think that the new S-Class is the best looking of the bunch. Alright, so because this is an S8, let's talk about this engine. So this is the familiar 4-liter twin turbocharged mild hybrid 48-volt 8-cylinder, making 563 horsepower and 590 pounds-feet of torque. It's made it to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and it's putting power down to the infamous Audi Quattro all-wheel drive system. Now, because Audi did streamline, essentially cut down some of the A8 trim levels, the S8 is the only A8 that you can get with a V8. So no more regular A8 with a V8. This is probably because the lack of interest in full-size luxury sedans now, as everybody is just moving towards SUVs. As far as some more of the performance numbers, its weight 5,150 pounds roughly, and a 0 to 60 time of 3.8 seconds, which is substantially fast considering how big and heavy this car is. Now, some of the other performance items this car gets as far as its suspension: it has a limited slip differential in the rear, it has sport adaptive air suspension, and it has the ability to raise and lower itself. It has dynamic all-wheel steering, essentially rear wheel steering, which is fantastic for a car this big. It really helps shrink it. And the wheels on this example are fantastic, very cool looking. They're 21/9 on all 4 corners. The brakes are 6 pistons up front and single piston in the rear. Now, beyond all the numbers and stats, let me take you around back so you can take a listen to what this 8-cylinder sounds like. Alright, so because this is a big luxury sedan and people are going to drive these things on a daily basis, let's switch over and talk about some of the practical topics, starting off with the cargo space, and then we'll move on to the interior. So speaking of the cargo, essentially the trunk space, there are multiple ways of opening this trunk. There's a button on the interior, there's a button on the key, there's also comfort access right here on top of the license plate, and there is the kicking motion underneath the bumper. And once you open this thing, you're going to be greeted with 12 cubic feet of space, which is equal to the new S-Class, but a little bit less than the BMW 7 Series. But nonetheless, there is plenty of room in here. You can probably fit a stroller in here if you wanted to, 2 larger pieces of traveling equipment and a duffel bag, stacking things, getting clever with it. So plenty of storage space in the back of the S8. Now, one item to note, and this is standard for most of the other cars in this segment as well, you cannot fold down the rear seats for extra cargo space, so you're limited limited to just what you've got in the trunk. There is a small pass-through area, but it's not really going to make that much of a difference. Now, closing the trunk is electronic closing. You push this button here and it will just close gracefully for you. Now, let's move on to the interior and talk about what's going on in there. All right, so now the interior of the Audi S8, and let's start it off with the quality and design topics. So as far as quality goes, this does have the executive trim level, which gives it extended leather up here on the dash and on the door panels. So it's a really high quality, nice fit, good finish interior. You're sitting here and it feels like you're in a nice space. As far as the design goes, it's a balanced interior, and what I mean by that, on one side of the equation, it's classical because this is a big, large, luxurious sedan, and there needs to be some hints of classiness in here. And then the other side of the equation is it's still modern at the same in the same token, and there's definitely glimpses of that. You see the piano black on the dash, and then contrasted by the metal brush finish here, and the overall design of the screens and how they're nicely integrated into the dash. Contrary to some other Audis I've driven where the infotainment system is basically like either stuck up on the dash as an afterthought, this is very nicely designed and put together. One really cool modern touch is the way the air conditioning vents are disguised. So when you turn the air conditioning on, the vents just flip open, and it kind of gives it a really unique and cool flair to the interior design. Now let's switch over into the overall size and the comfort. Starting off with the size, I'm 5'11". I don't even have the seat in the lowest position, and I have several inches of headroom on top of me, so a taller individual will be able to fit in here just fine. The overall space up here is fantastic for a non-SUV large sedan, so you definitely do get an SUV feel in here because it is very large in the front area. And as far as the seat goes, this is a 22-way heated, cooled, and massaging seat. As far as heating or additional heating, your steering wheel is heated, and these armrest areas, both in the center area and on the door panel, are also heated, so you get a really heated seat or heated environment in the driver area. And the seat itself is very, very comfortable. The seat cushioning is very soft. It has good levels of adjustability, obviously 22-way seat. Now let's switch over into the technology, and there are 3 screens in this S8, and you have a 12-inch gauge cluster, so that gives you all of your trip and Bluetooth information, actually a whole bunch of information about your car, obviously your speedometer and tachometer, and you can do a lot of the functions right here in front of you that you would normally have to use the infotainment system for. Now, the infotainment system itself is a 10.1-inch screen, again, beautifully integrated into the dash. The software running behind the screen is Audi's MMI system, and it's the same that I saw in all the other Audis that I've driven. I actually like it. It's not my favorite, only because aesthetically it's not as pleasing to me as, let's say, the MBUX system from Mercedes or even iDrive from BMW. Otherwise, it's very simple, easy to use. You jump in here, all the icons are just laid out in big, large widgets, so you don't have to guess on where you're going. The touch interface is very nice as well. It is quite a snappy infotainment system, but if you didn't like it, you could run Android Auto and Apple CarPlay with this MMI as well. Now, switching on over into the third and final screen, I love the fact that this is a dedicated climate control screen, and it has a lot of the functions built into it that you would normally have buttons and whatnot. So if you were somebody who wanted buttons and didn't like touch screens or everything integrated, at least this has a separate screen where everything is just right at the tip of your fingertips. So your climate control is controlled from here, your heated seats, your cooled seats, your massaging seats, all of those things are just right here. So I really like the overall function and the execution of the technology and the infotainment system in this Audi S8. Now, as far as some of the other amenities, you do have a panoramic sunroof here and the charging capability. So you have 2 USB Type-C outlets in the center compartment, and you also have a 12-volt outlet. So with the front area out of the way, now let's jump to the back seats and I'll talk to you about what it's like over there. All right, so now the back seat in the S8, and let's talk about the overall sizing. So you can see that I have an unbelievably large amount of legroom here, and I'm not kidding. This looks like there's probably like a 1.5 or 2 feet of legroom in here. It's absolutely remarkable, and I'm sitting behind myself at 5'11", so there is no issues with legroom, and this is a long wheelbase car, so this is to be expected. So if you're looking for something to lounge in the back here with a whole lot of legroom, the Audi A8 or the S8 achieves that absolutely. As far as the overall comfort in here, the seats are very comfortable. This headrest is really, really nice. It has the adjustability, and the overall seating position is wonderful. As far as some of the amenities in here, you do have sunshades that you can control from here. There's the panoramic roof. You have a rear sunshade as well, so it really cocoons you in. As far as charging goes, you do have 4 different outlets or 4 different types of connectors. You have 2 12-volt outlets here, so if you wanted to plug in your car charger for fast charging, or if you have a laptop that you have the ability to charge via a 12-volt outlet, you can absolutely do that. And then you also have this center armrest, and in this center armrest you have 2 USB type C controllers here and a little storage compartment. Now, as I folded this thing down, there is a little tablet here that kind of gives it this executive feel. And from this tablet, you have the ability to control multiple aspects of your environment back here. So your heated seats are controlled from here, your dim lights and whatnot, your audio settings, your sound, your air conditioning. So this is a 2-zone climate control system back here. It's 4 zones in total, but each passenger in the back seat has the ability to control their own climate control zone. And this thing actually pops out and you can use it like a little tablet. So if I wanted to turn the air conditioning on my side, I go ahead and tap my seat and I turn it on and I adjust the temperature to the way I like it. So this is a really, really nice back seat as far as the amenities, the luxury, the overall seating, the comfort, and just the space as well. So that's pretty much it on the interior. Now let's move to the driving portion of the review and see what this S8 is like behind the wheel. All right, so now the driving portion of the review, and as always, this is what the key looks like. Not a bad key. It does have the Audi S logo here and then the buttons to control the door locks and the trunk and whatnot. But I can tell you that after some years of usage, it looks like there's some heavy scratching here on the plastic. Nonetheless, the visibility is fantastic. It does have a great 360-degree camera. As far as base price goes, the starting price is $117,000 and change. When I saw the window sticker of this car, it was $130 some odd thousand and change. So this is quite a loaded car with a bunch of options. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and turn this thing on and go for a quick drive. Start stop here in red. Nice sound. You get a nice rumble from the exhaust note. So let's go ahead and start off in Comfort Plus. And the nice thing about the modes, it'll leave you in the mode that you turn the car off in. So that's always a great thing. And as I set off here, this Comfort Plus mode is just really, really nice. And I'll get into the overall comfort and the daily drivability here in just a second. But I'm going to go ahead and put it in dynamic mode, which is essentially sport mode in Audi speak. And let's see what this thing has. Let's put it in manual mode. Oh wow, it really moves. Starts to float a little bit, just a little bit. But the overall speed is amazing. Let's get it a little bit more. Wow. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. Surprisingly fast for such a humongous car. Let's get another one here. Yeah, it moves you into the back of your seat and gives a really nice speed sensation. I was actually really surprised when I got in this thing and drove it the first time, and how eager it was to kind of get up and go. It's a very, very fast car. And the other interesting thing about it is, and I don't know if this is being pumped in or if it's actually coming from the engine, you can hear the turbo. There's a little whistle, and once you're under heavy acceleration, you do get a lot of noise coming in from the engine, and the exhaust note is pretty good as well. Nice violent V8 sound. So the engine and the speed is actually very surprising and very good. Now, the transmission is good as well. It's just like a ZF8 speed. If you've driven one of those, it feels fantastic, and it's no different in here. Now, as far as the brake goes, here's another surprising thing in that it's great. And the reason why I say it's surprising is because when I've driven cars of this size, they usually are very squishy as far as the brake pedal goes. And this one actually isn't. There's a lot of bite right at the top, and it gives me good feedback, good brake pedal in this car. It's my kind of brake, and of course, my expectation is not that it would be a sports car brake, but it does have a great feel right at the top of the pedal, which is what I like. Now, as far as the weight goes, it does it does feel very heavy. As I give it steering input, you can't really hide 5,000 pounds. But as I go through that bump there, let's transition into the steering and the suspension. So when I am in dynamic mode, it's not that big of a difference. In fact, I would say that when you drive it in dynamic mode, it's very easy to mistake it for comfort mode because it's still compliant riding. It definitely is comfortable enough to just forget it in this mode and think you're in Comfort Plus. The only noticeable difference is that the steering gets a little heavier, but otherwise, I didn't really notice that much of a difference. Now, let's switch it over into Comfort Plus, and when you're in Comfort Plus, this is a really, really comfortable place to be. It just lofts along, very soft and supple ride. In fact, it reminds me a lot of the 7 Series that I have a lot of experience driving. It feels very, very similar to that car. But that one was the 740, so 6-cylinder, this is 8, so the driving dynamic is a little different. Otherwise, very similar riding. So, as far as overall, what is this thing? Surprisingly fast. Not as sporty as the S63 that I drove the prior gen, that there is no new one yet. That one felt a lot sportier than this. And the overall ride of the new S-Class is still the best, the most comfortable riding car I have basically ever reviewed. But this is still very good as well. Now, as far as a daily basis, this thing would just perform admirably. Now, this is the epitome of a executive, large, full-size sedan. And even though my experience with it has been relatively short, I've been with it for a couple hours now, but I would imagine that it would fit that bill very, very nicely. So great car to drive on a daily basis. So that's pretty much it about the Audi S8. If you have any other questions, please make sure to leave me a comment down below or just send me a message on Instagram @DriveSteady. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.